inflict shocking events.
Hey, greetings everybody from Terry at D-Lab Electronics. Yeah, I'm still here. However, I just got shocked by this Danelectro Maestro Model 78 guitar amplifier. Here's a story. Alright, so this amplifier came into the shop with a complaint of distortion, and then over time the audio would just fade out. So I wanted to separate, is the problem in the preamp section or the main amps? And conveniently, there is an RCA cable where you can disconnect the preamp and inject direct into the main section. And that was my game plan. Then it happened. Alright, so here's the setup. I had my generator connected, ready to test. The power was on, and then I noticed that the main amp chassis shifted, so the tubes contacted the upper chassis. I wasn't comfortable with that, so I grabbed the main power transformer and I wanted to simply stand the chassis back upright. But when I did that, the back of my hand brushed this upper chassis and I got one heck of a high potential poke. I thought, how could I get shocked by the chassis? Is the power cord ground open? Here's what I found. Okay, to demonstrate the problem, I have a multimeter set on DC volts, and we are measuring the potential between the two chassis. So my negative is on the main chassis, positive is on the upper. And of course, if you have a ground connection, you should see approximately 0 volts, right? Remember, this amp came in with a high noise floor and distortion, but let's pay attention to the meter. So I'm seeing around, let's just say 10 millivolts of potential difference between the two chassis, and that obviously would not have shocked me. But remember, I was trying to inject to the bottom chassis only, so I disconnected this RCA cable. So let me disconnect that cable and we will repeat the test. Alright, now I have disconnected the RCA cable from the upper preamp section that normally feeds the bottom amplifier section. I'm going to apply power. Once again, watch the meter. "460 volts between the two chassis." So when I was reaching in there, touching the grounded chassis, and my hand hit that top chassis, that 465 went through my hand, and believe me, it did not feel good. But imagine if you had one hand on this chassis and your other hand on that chassis, then that 465 volts goes through your heart, lights out. Okay, so an easy solution to this problem would be to add a ground runner between the two chassis. So a heavy gauge wire that's actually screwed to both chassis, bringing them to the same potential. But the other thing that I would do is add a little note on the chassis that says, if you disconnect this ground, there is a potential shock hazard waiting for you. So in conclusion, this is obviously a very unsafe designed amplifier. Luckily for me, when I was in there working, I was only using one hand, so the extent of my injury was reacting in the upper part of my hand hitting that chassis. If you're working on one of these amplifiers, please be aware of this information and use extreme caution when working on the Danelectro.
This has been a D-Lab Demented production.